Welcome back, change agents, to another episode for those who are biblically curious. Today's first question is, why are there different kinds of Bibles, often called translations, and which ones can I trust? Well, the original Bible, the one written by Moses and David, and prophets like Isaiah, the gospel writers, the Apostle Paul, was mostly written in the languages of Greek and Hebrew. Unless we were to learn these languages, it would be nearly impossible to read or even study the Bible. Thankfully, in 1526, a man named William Tyndale translated the first New Testament Bible into the English language. Here's a sample of that English translation using John 3:16. As you can see, the words differ quite a bit from how we spell and talk today. About 85 years later, the English Church printed the first King James Version Bible, which you might be more familiar with. Here's the same verse using this translation. A bit easier to understand, but still a few old words. Here's the same verse in the New International Version, first written in 1978 and then updated in 1984 and again in 2011. Bibles like the King James Version took the original text in Greek and Hebrew and basically translated it word for word. Bibles like the New International Version took the same text and translated it thought for thought. Other Bibles meet somewhere in the middle between word for word and thought for thought, and there's often quite a bit of debate on which one is best. The most important thing to remember when choosing a Bible to read is that you understand what God and the original author is saying to you. Just because a Bible like the King James Version might better express the original language, reading it doesn't mean your heart will experience the change that God desires. Today's second question is, how can I be sure the Bible I'm reading today is reliable? This is a great question and one that gets asked all the time, especially considering the Bible and its completed form is nearly 2,000 years old. First, we have to remember that the Bible was written by about 40 authors over a period of 1,500 years. Each writer wrote with a different style, from a different point of view, to different people for a different reason. Then, keep in mind that the original text was translated over time into the English language. Because of this, we should expect some minor differences between the original Bible and the one you read today. But it's also important to know that these small differences are not mistakes. In fact, when using the same rules by which we judge other really old books, not only is the Bible reliable, it's more reliable than all of these other thousands-year-old books. When trying to determine the reliability of ancient books, two questions are asked. The first is, how many different manuscripts are there? A manuscript is simply a copy of something. Suppose for a second your teacher gives you a worksheet. Where do you think that worksheet came from? Well, an author who makes teaching books came up with the idea, wrote it down, probably on pen and paper, eventually typed it out, and then gave it to a publisher who prints books for teachers. Your teacher then makes a copy and gives it to you. That original idea that was eventually typed out and given to a publisher, that's a manuscript. If you went back in time and looked at that original idea on pen and paper, I bet it would match pretty close to what's on your worksheet today. So, manuscripts are very important in helping scholars understand the reliability of ancient text. Only a few manuscripts exist for the writings of the Roman ruler Julius Caesar, which means it's very difficult for experts to say with any degree of accuracy the reliability of his books today. Over 600 manuscripts exist for the writings of Homer. Experts say they're about 95% sure that his books written today are accurate. So, how many manuscripts exist for the New Testament written in Greek alone? Over 5,000. Experts say they are 99% sure that what we read today is very accurate and nearly identical to what the original authors wrote. The second big question to help determine the reliability of the Bible is there proof that at least some of the Bible stories happened? Archaeologists in the 1920s discovered the city of Ur, where Abraham was born, which many people thought did not exist. Also, 4,000-year-old clay tablets were found in modern-day Syria, showing that Old Testament stories and places were not make-believe. Just as important, no stories in the Old or New Testament have ever been proven to be false. But what's most important is that you have a belief in the absolute truth that God is who He says He is, that He loves you, and that Jesus is God's Son, sacrificed for you and rose again. Until we meet again.